most important questions in a life don't arrive when we are ready for them. They don't announce themselves. They wait. They sit quietly in a person for years, sometimes decades, before they ever get spoken out loud. Here's one of them. When did I write myself off? Not a crisis, not a breakdown, just a moment, often an ordinary one, sitting somewhere you didn't expect. When you noticed the door you'd assumed was closed was actually a door you closed. And you find yourself standing in front of it again, wondering if it's really too late or if you only told yourself it was. This season, we spent a lot of time at thresholds, the places where life turns. And one of the things I kept finding, conversation after conversation, is that the stories we reach for, the ones we read in private, the ones that would make us blush to name, tend to show up right at those turning points, not as escape, as company, as a kind of rehearsal for the crossing we are not sure we can make. Because that's the strange, perhaps even magical thing about reading. A book can hand you a heroine who's stuck exactly where you're stuck. A character who won't make the decision you can't make. And somewhere in the middle of her story, watching her, you start to recognize yourself. The reading does something the thinking couldn't do on its own. It lets you meet the thing sideways, in a contained place where it's safe enough to actually feel it. My guest today lives close to all of this. Rebecca Nelson is getting her master's in literature, and she helps run the romance book club at the bookstore where she and I first met. Which means she stands in a rare spot. She reads romance seriously, in the academy and behind the counter. And she watches, up close, what it does for the women who walk in looking for it. And as you will see and hear, what it's done for her. What I didn't expect when we sat down was that Rebecca would tell me the story of her own crossing. And as she talked, I started hearing it in the way I hear a novel. A woman who'd quietly closed some doors on herself, and then, at a moment nobody would have scripted, began opening them again. And if you will let me say it in the way I felt it, it read like a romance. Not with another person, but with a part of herself that had refused to write herself off. So, pull up a chair. This is Romancing the Threshold. Let's begin. All right, Rebecca, how you doing?
I'm doing so good. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for joining me, and thank you for joining me right at, the beginning of your vacation.
Oh, man. Yes, I think you've caught me at my most excited because finals have just ended. And so now it's like, I've had to stay in between to get the tiredness out, and now it's pure energy.
That's great. So we were talking before recording. So now I think I'm just going to jump in a little bit and then we'll follow the other questions. But you were talking about being, because I met you through the bookstore, Sherwood Bookstore. For those here in Oregon, Portland area, please go check it out. I'm going to do a plug-in. But that's how I met you, because of the Romance Book Club. But as I was telling you, I wanted to invite you to the podcast. Well, because first of all, you're really nice. You're a May baby like me. So, May power. But also because I think you stand in a very interesting intersection. You're doing your master's in literature, and you're working at an independent bookstore. So you get to see what people are coming in and bringing and asking and looking for. And you're running some different book clubs as well for the bookstore.
Yes,
So
that
I
is
think
correct.
that you have a very different perspective.
I do.
And you were just starting to say, and then I was like, oh my God, I got to record now before the thought goes away. Is I was asking you, like, what are people coming into the bookstore? What do you notice from these readers, from these potential readers? What are they looking for?
Yeah. Okay, I'm so sorry. Of course, as soon as we start recording, my dog is asking to go outside, and I need to step up really quick and open the door.
Go there.
I'm so sorry. Oh, the timing is terrible. Um, so coming into the bookstore, we see all different types of people, from all different walks of life, and I would say. Well, I mean, I would say like this isn't my first experience with retail and retail management and things like that. And so I'm used to seeing people who come in that are excited to talk. So we get some people that come in that want to have full on conversations. Others just kind of want to be left alone and like browse and have their quiet moments. Some stay, grab a drink, hang out with some books and read. And then others they know what title they want. They go in and out. And that it's all beautiful to see, like so many different styles of book buying and interaction. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I feel like I just got thrown off with having to deal with the dog.
That's okay. That's an interruption. I mean, I guess that's kind of the experience even being in a bookstore. Like you're probably talking to a customer and in this engaged conversation, but something out there catches your attention. You got to take care of that and sort of do this dance.
Yeah, you want to make sure in a bookstore that everybody is acknowledged and welcomed and taken care of. And, I know that for me, I am that person when I go into a store that I just kind of like to ease my way in. I get a little bit of social anxiety. So for me, not having somebody descend on me right away is what I prefer. And so I try to obviously I'll welcome people as soon as they come into the store, see if there's anything specific in case they want to get that taken care of right away. Otherwise, I'm perfectly fine to just kind of let them walk around and then touch base with them, periodically to make sure they're still good. And I absolutely love though when I get to connect with people who are not certain what they want to read. And then they're talking about the books that they've last read, what they might be in the mood for, but they're waiting for that book to call to them. And then we just get in this conversation about all these great stories that are out there and what might be good fits. I could talk about books forever. So
I feel that. I know that. It's interesting because as you're describing that, I almost could feel like it's almost a little bit of a magical element to be almost, you could be the matchmaker between the person, what they're desiring to read, and maybe your recommendation will point them in the right direction where they meet the book.
Yes, but it also goes both ways. There's so many customers that have come in that I've had taken recommendations from to add to my eternal TBR that's going on. But they've had these magical experiences as well. And so, there will be titles. I read a lot, but there's no way that I can read everything. And so to hear what connected for them, even if it's a title I have read, we all connect in different ways, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes they may actually want to go back and reread in order to see what it is that they found that I didn't see. Yeah. It's a beautiful back and forth, but I love how you describe it as magical because I do feel, many times that's what those experiences feel like. And I recognize how lucky I am to be able to be in that store and in that position to have those conversations.
And it's a rare, I feel like nowadays it's a little bit of a rare feeling because, thankfully there are a lot more bookstores now. Yeah. But in some ways, the social contract has changed a little bit. And sometimes you go into places, it's kind of quiet and you're just doing your thing. But when you were describing that encounter with people who also recommend something to you, I'm reminded of, I think it was 4 years ago. I went into a bookstore in Ireland a big one of the big ones in Dublin. So I didn't think I was going to get anything really personal. I was just going to be on my own. But I was searching for specific myths. And the woman who helped me, I felt like she was kind of like an angel. Like the books that she recommended to me, and I got all of them, really fit what I was looking for. And I was so, and the little piece of information she gave me about certain myths that I was looking for, I was like, oh, this just kind of made the whole pilgrimage to Ireland sort of like close in a nice little bow. So that encounter with the bookseller was magical to me. So I was just, as you're telling your story, I was like, oh yes, that feeling is so nice.
Yeah. Just that feeling of connection. And sometimes I think, when you walk in, you don't know what you need or what you're looking for. And then you just find it in the most unexpected ways. Wow.
Yeah. And how books open up doorways that we don't know. Maybe with one book, you're in just another realm, but it shapes your life. Yeah.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I do want to kind of go back a little bit to the origin here of your origin, because the origin of how we met was last fall, the first romance book club at the store. Yeah. Which I was looking for other readers. I wanted to be with people who are reading romance. And I found out about the book club the day before, so I did not read the book. I just showed up. But you all was so welcoming, and it's such a great third space that we need. But for yourself, what's the thread of your life that led you to this place where you're at, getting your master's in literature, weaving all your reading, and also working at a bookstore?
Yeah, it's such a strange, unexpected culmination of events for me. I won't go back too far, but just even going back, a few years ago, I had my initial background was in retail management, and then eventually after my divorce, I transitioned into real estate, which provided me with connecting one-on-one with clients. Using those skills in a different way. And it also, on a personal level, gave me freedom of time in order to make sure that I was at my kids' sports as they were growing up. So making sure that I was present for all the important things. Well, my boys now, my oldest, oh my gosh, is turning 21 in September. And my younger son is, he's turning 19 in a month. And then my daughter is going to be turning 9 the same next month as well. But my boys had been finishing up high school. And I felt like at this moment of my life where I had been feeling like I'd been living in survival mode for so long, and just feeling like needing to get them to graduation. And as they were getting ready to do that, they had these nights where they were advising on college and talking about resources and things like that. And I went to both of them, but it was my younger sons that set me at least on the academic path. I had 2 previous college experiences before and never finished my bachelor's. And the first time right after I'd graduated high school, I was too nervous to go very far. And so I went to community college for a little bit, and I got married very, very young. I got married a week after I turned 20 years old. And I paused my academic career at that point in order to work because we were looking to buy a house and all of those things. Sometime after my second son, I had gone back to university for a bit. Up until, and I'm truncating this like so much, so I apologize.
That's okay.
I went up until I got divorced, and I didn't have the emotional capacity at that point to understand that there were resources or people that I could talk to. Like maybe I could have paused it in a different way, and I just fell off and I stopped going. So as I'm in this moment, listening to all these amazing resources and the way that academia has changed, and knowing my son's going to embark on this, like I'm very excited for him. And at the same time, I felt kind of jealous, like, man, and wistful. Like I wish that I had finished that for myself. I wish I had done those things. And, we think about the way that we make our choices and who we were in those points of times. And I had this moment as I'm sitting there in this media room. Used to be a library at the school that I actually had graduated high school from. Ironically, he graduated from the same high school. Thinking like, when did I write myself off? Like, I realized that I was the one that was closing these threads, and thinking like, is it done? Is it really done? And at that point, that had that motivated me to reach out to the university to see like, hey, I was here X amount of years ago. I don't know, like what could coming back look like? Would they even want me back? Like, I don't know how this works. I'm first generation, clearly older now. Like, so I was worried. I'm like, why would they take me back? I left, I did all these things. Like I made these horrible decisions, and turns out it was a lot easier than I expected. And things just kind of happened in a way that I didn't anticipate. I messed up on my FAFSA. I thought I was going to start in the fall. But apparently I applied for summer. So they're like, hey, we're expecting you in a few weeks. And I was like, oh my gosh, didn't plan on that. But okay. They're like, well, if you really want, we can move you. And I was like, no, you know what? That's okay. Like, let's go ahead and do it this way. And so things just kind of started to fall into place. And that's what started the beginning of kind of like the split in my career and going back into academia. In real estate, I had started training agents and hosting classes, and I found I love education so much. I'm also on the executive board for the Hillsborough Schools Foundation, and we do a lot of work in trying to bridge gaps between funding for things that the students and administration and staff need. And so I had this amazing experience with helping provide career kits and books in the libraries in like multiple languages so students can really see themselves in what they're reading. So all of this academic work really helped me realize how much I love education, I already knew how much I loved literature, but I would talk about it all the time. And that also impacted wanting to go back to school, is realizing I have such a passion for these things. Why am I not doing something in that field? And realizing the other ways that I was limiting myself. So that was kind of the origin of going back there. So I'm studying, working on finishing my bachelor's. I was taking 18 credit terms. They still had the credits that I had from when I was there before, which was amazing. And I did this kind of mental math, figuring out that if I did X amount of credits per term, I could finish within that year. And what I embarked on was this journey that was very healing in ways that I had not anticipated, also challenging. And then I found myself wanting more. And I was still working, real estate at the time. So as I'm, like finishing up, I'm entering into like the summer where I'm doing more open houses, things like that. And I hear Sherwin's going to have a bookstore that opens. And I can't remember whether I was on my way to or from an open house. And I didn't remember the date that I did this, but apparently I was there for the grand opening of the bookstore. Adam actually found a photo in. So I was there that day, but I stopped by and I remember, I remember buying a lot of stuff where he's like, here, have this tote bag, like take it with you. And it was just such a wonderful conversation, and it felt like such a special store. Now I live in Hillsborough. It's about 30 minutes from Sherwood. And so it's a drive, right? It's a drive to go out there.
It's a drive.
It is. But that store, the Sherwood bookstore, it's so, to use the word that we were using earlier, there's magic there. Yeah. And every time that I would stop in, Adam would remember my name. We'd have these great conversations. He would remember things that were going on. I love talking to Obie and Jay. Like, I would find these good books and I would hear about all these events that we're going to be building out. And, when we get into adulthood, like we have some of our close friends, but scheduling always makes things very hard to get together, and here I was like trying to parent at a lot of kids' sports, working on, like finishing up this degree where I'm turning in discussion posts and assignments in stadium seats, at my kids' sports, things like that.
Determination.
Yeah. Like I worked, going back, like I know that not everybody gets to do that. And I understood like the honor and I have such gratitude for being able to do this at this point in my life. So yeah, I wanted to make sure like they knew like I'm going to work, I'm going to do this. I held a 4.0 for the entire time I worked on finishing my bachelor's. And unless I've screwed
That's
up these
amazing.
finals, yeah, I work hard for all of these things. But with the bookstore, like I wanted that connection that I, felt like I was missing a little bit. And so, when we talked about the romance book club, I didn't start working for the bookstore until like end of October. I think Halloween,
Okay.
actually, technically.
So close to the book club. Yeah.
Yeah, so close to the book club. So when I started with the book club, I wasn't even working for the store. It was something that I really wanted to do because I love reading and I love these different categories. And so I remember feeling like a little nervous, going in, and especially like with romance, like I have, some experience with romance, but I was finding, especially with this group, that I'm like, oh man, I don't feel as educated in some of these areas. I was like, is it still possible to feel naive at 40s? It was really.
Yeah. Well, I just want to pause here because thank you for sharing your story, because the little bit that we've talked at the book club. Yeah. And once you said you were really into reading these heroines who are really badass and kick-ass, I was like, oh, I can see it. You did it. you did it yourself. Your whole journey. I'm hearing your story and I'm like, this is a novel. This is a real novel that has the whole, like, all the parts, of like you close the doors, you close it, and then an opportunity comes. You see that, you start opening again. You say yes to the call to adventure, to bring in our good friend Joseph Campbell here. But, a friend of the podcast, as they say. And you opened yourself, you faced the challenges, you showed such great devotion, to be finishing papers during, out there in the field, both being present for your kids, but also being present for yourself. It's quite the novel. It could be a total romantasy novel. It could be a romance novel. I mean, I feel like I'm tearing up here just listening to your own story,
It's been a lot. And honestly, I kept some of it. When I first went back, I tried to keep it secret for as long as possible, because what business did I have doing this at this age? And then also that fear, especially when you work, of, are they going to think that I just want to leave? Am I going to be cut off from these things? How are people going to take it? And it hit a point though with my schedule where there was no way that I could do that. Like I had to be upfront about these priorities and how things were going to shape and make other decisions. And I have found nothing but just such beautiful, wonderful support from the people in my life. And especially from my kids as well. Especially when it comes to academia. I had this moment not this spring, but last spring when I was finishing up the bachelor's and transitioning, where my son.
So you transitioned, sorry, just to make, transitioned from like bachelor's to the master's then?
Yeah. When I was finishing up as I was working to finish up my bachelor, I realized that I didn't want to stop after that. I felt I had finally found a place where I felt at home. Mm-hmm. And that all of these things, these pieces of me that loved literature and books, like weirdly, I did not know a lot of people who enjoy reading. I'm not really sure how this happened. And so there was these pieces of me that I felt like I kept kind of tucked inside, or they knew, like everybody who knows me associates books and reading, one of the first things that they will associate with me. But I'm like, I think in some ways I'm just that quirky friend that, loves those things. But here I was getting to be in a setting where this was an asset and where people want to know more and where you actually get to explore those passions. And I wanted more of that. And so I had been, when you make the application for a grad school, you are doing it depending on which schools you're applying to, they can be due at the beginning of December or January. And I hadn't been back that long. I had come back summer of 2024, and I really only had 1 to 2 maybe quarters to show my grades. And like I said, I worked really, really hard, and I had gotten a 4.0 for those grades. But those decisions I had made in the past had followed, and my overall GPA reflected that. So, there's this, I wasn't even sure that grad school was a possibility. There was a few universities I talked to where they accepted other grades. And obviously, like you get to tell a little bit about your experience, and you're submitting writing samples and things like that. So when I had the opportunity to go to grad school, and for where I'm at as the university I'm at, I was also offered a graduate teaching assistantship, which means that I get to teach Writing 121. I received tuition remission for doing work for the university. It was just beyond anything I ever could have imagined for myself. Like I applied telling myself that if I don't try, it'll always be the what if. And I don't want to do the what ifs anymore in my life. Like I want to pursue. So I had applied not really thinking anything was going to come of it, and realizing like, okay, well, even if it does, like what kind of student loan? So to be where I'm at right now and having this opportunity, not only to go to graduate school and work at a higher level, but also to instruct Writing 121, get more teaching experience, and to have those supports. It's just been it's so incredible.
It's so incredible. And I'm almost like, okay, this is book 2 of Rebecca's life. Book 1 was, and now book 2, here it is. You were given the welcome into the space, into the realm.
Yeah. And I guess like when you're talking about, I haven't necessarily thought about my life too much like as a book or anything like that, but in some ways it does make you think about where we meet characters. Mm-hmm. Right. And sometimes they think that their life is going one way and they're perfectly happy with it. Others are experiencing loss and don't know where they're turning from there. And this moment happens, right, where they have to make a decision. Like some don't get that choice. Some are forced like kind of into that adventure based on what happens, but others do, right? They get to decide, do I want to live my life the same way, or am I going to take a risk, or am I going to do this, or like what is important? And I think that in that respect, maybe my trajectory follows that a little.
Yeah. I mean, as you're telling me now, of course it's kind of compressed for the time that we have. Absolutely. And just picking up, I guess again, I that's the work I do. I listen to people's stories and I try to see the pattern underneath. So part of me is feeling that I'm both interviewing you, but almost sitting here. Sort of, I don't want to be your coach, but almost I'm the coach as well. I'm the sort of the therapeutic, holding the therapeutic space, but I can totally see how the little bits you shared, you're becoming the main character again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like a real romance of your own life, of like your own abilities, of things that you thought were done, that you were beyond your age. Who's going to do this? But even the little piece that you shared about you being such a lover of reading, and then realize, there's a bunch of us out there who love to read, and you're meeting them, and it's kind of like a little bit of a found family, to use the tropes, and the bookstore is a little bit, now that's the only space you're in, but it's one of the spaces you're in now that is a third space that is creating a different kind of container, and it's bringing a container for you, but it's bringing other people like myself that are, being able to be like, oh, there are others like us,
Yeah. And it feels so weird to say that, like, there's a part of me that's like, how do you not know that there's other people that enjoy these things? But I think it also depends right on the space that you're in and the people that you're around. And if you continue to be in those same pathways, like that's what you're going to continue to experience. But it makes me appreciate these spaces so much more. The bookstore is one of my favorite places to be, because I feel just similar to being at the university, I feel at home and I feel comfortable and I'm excited to walk in every single time that I'm there and to think about, am I going to see some of my favorite regulars today? Is it book club day? You know, thinking about the discussions we're going to have. And I absolutely love, especially when it's the romance book club day, because it's such a small group of ladies. And you were talking about the welcoming feeling earlier. I think just the place of safety and joy and openness are things that you don't find many other places. And I feel like, and it's not just at the romance book club, I do feel like the bookstore embodies that in general. And I think everybody deserves to feel that kind of love and safety. So yeah, whatever.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking here of my own experience, because I too, started reading romance much later in life. I mean, I read before, but it wasn't never really my thing. I was more nonfiction. And then I had my year, of sort of burnout, and I needed to heal and I needed to do that inner work. So I call it my cave year. And, and the thing that was my lifeline was all of a sudden reading romance, which some of my friends were like, are you okay? Or do we need an intervention? The minute I started singing, I'm reading orc romances, they looked at me a bit like, this might be an intervention moment. The first question actually was like, the Tolkien orcs? I was like, no. They're way sexier, much prettier. Be okay. But when I remember looking for the book club, because funny enough, I myself am not good at a book club. I've never participated in a book club because I don't like people telling me what to read. I like to read whatever I want to read.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to have my own book club because I wanted to have people read whatever they wanted to read. So that's a whole different story. But I figured, no, I should try to go to a book club because at least I will meet other people who read romance. And at this point, I feel isolated. My friends like to read, but not this kind of genre. And so I needed to meet other people. So I found the bookstore. I had been there before and looked online. There, guys, you had it. I was like, I'm going to go. And it's like half an hour away from my house, but off we go.
Oh, yeah, because you're not too far from me.
No,
I don't think,
no. And, the traffic at that time of day. And, but I went, and I remember coming back home and my husband asked me how was it? And I was like, it was great, And so now when I go, it's very exciting. It's one of those things that I wait for, in the month. But it's this, what also impressed me, I don't go to the other book clubs that you're participating or running, but it's an interesting mix. I think the space of the bookstore, and I think this is to honor both what Adam has created as his bookstore, but also the space of a bookstore in the collective imagination, if you will. Because to me, a bookstore is like church. I don't go to church, but a bookstore is my church. And I think it's a space in which each of the books are doorways to other worlds and other possibilities. And if you get to meet other people in the bookstore, like we're having the opportunity to meet other fellow readers, it is even more magical. Other opportunities really open up. And I feel we're so hungry for this. And the other thing that a bookstore to me is, they are guardians of imagination. Yeah. Because the books have to have a place. There are doorways to other places, but the books themselves need to have a place to come. And yes, we can buy them online and it's fine. The algorithm sometimes will definitely recommend the right book to you. As we know, we have had this experience. But there's something that feels like the experience I had in Ireland and how you have with the readers that are coming in. It touches us in a different way when you feel that you feel seen. Yeah. And I think this element of feeling seen and recognized, which to me is a core value of romance in general, it's this ability, I see you. And what I see, I value. and here it is. We need more spaces of that. And so I think it's a wonderful thing that we have the opportunity to go to the store.
Yes, when you talk about being seen, and that was one of the things that kept bringing me back. Like I said, how many spaces do you go in where the people that work there know your name, know what's happening with you, know what you like to read enough to where they can recommend something like that in itself is a special interaction. And you do, I think, develop a trust and a loyalty. Like, so for me, I had like a membership, a couple membership to a different bigger bookstore that I actually canceled at that point because I was like, this is where I want to spend my time. This is where I want to spend my money. Like something very, very special. I also want to circle back. You use the word guardians. And I love that because I think when it comes to knowledge, which we get from books, whether that be fiction, nonfiction, and it's not even the knowledge like where we have to learn something, right? But just to like be and experience and live. There's still such a heavy element of gatekeeping on what we're allowed to read, whose voices are, even published. And we've seen that even from like a historical perspective, right?
Yeah.
Everything is shaped by what we're allowed to see. And so for bookstores, I think using the word guardians is so important because I feel like good bookstores have that diverse ability, like whether I want to go in the romance aisle or go to classics or go literature fiction or, read that nautical, bit like we had for trivia and things, like having these doorways, having these opportunities is so vital, and to be able to provide them for people that might not get that experience.
Yeah. And allow also the sense of the welcoming is really important because the welcoming, it starts building the relationship. People might not open up. They might not even ask the question or even be comfortable enough to go look for what they really want to look for until they get that sense. I mean, this is beyond the times now, but if you remember video rental bookstores, right? DVD, bookstores, like Blockbuster, right? Yeah. But I remember, well, this is when I still lived in Brazil, the local rental DVD, VHS rental. I would go to them every week and the guy knew me. We would talk about movies and such. And so he would recommend this or recommend that. And I was like a faithful customer for years. And it was great. I got to watch a lot of good things, but it was that kind of space where you were able to exchange ideas and feel seen and recommend and I miss those places. It's not we lack those spaces now, and we need to bring them back.
Yes. I was going to say, well, they still exist, but I'm like, well, maybe not Blockbuster except in Bend.
Except in Bend.
But I think. I can think of, restaurants like that, right? Where it's like, okay, well, what do you recommend? I trust your decision. Like, just bring me what you think I would like, stuff like that. And what you're describing is this feeling of trust and openness and the ability for us to feel vulnerable in these spaces. And that's something that is also, I feel like, very unique and beautiful because there's so much that happens around us that would say otherwise, right? That where we need, feel like we need to keep the guards up and we need to present ourselves a certain way in order to, make it through. Today. It's like everything's falling apart around. And it's like, let me just hold it together. But when you walk into these spaces and you do feel seen like that, and have you ever walked into that space where you just feel like everything just take that breath and you can slow down and you can savor and you can enjoy. For me, that's what the Sherwood Bookstore feels like.
Yeah.
Experiences with the ladies at book club feels like.
All right. So let's talk about the romance book club.
Yeah, let's do it.
You sitting on the on the side of like, okay, we're going to do a romance book club. And what are some of your impressions now that it's been, I don't know how many months now anymore, but how you've noticed its evolution, I guess?
Well, we started out with fewer ladies, and we have continued to expand to where we actually needed name tags. Like, that's such a fun thing to have it grow like that and to see it evolve to where now we have mother-daughter duos coming, like, and people who don't feel like they have to finish the book to cut. Like, I don't know. It's so diverse and it's so beautiful. And I think back to when you were referring to a bookstore as like a kind of a church. I see Romance Book Club as a kind of communion.
Yes.
Right? We break pizza together, we like, and
cupcakes and cookies.
Yeah. And things like that. And everybody contributes in some way. And that's such a beautiful thing. And none of our other book clubs, at least so far, does that. It's the only one where we're all bringing stuff to the table. We're starting out fed. We're having these side conversations, and then we come together and it's like, okay. Right. Because now there's threads outside of the club. There's texts happening outside of the club. There's meetups happening. And it's really just evolved into this beautiful friendship among all of these different women where a month goes by, we come back together and it's like, okay, what is the next quote we're adding on to our metaphorical shirt? That needs to be a reality at some point.
That needs to be a reality. It's happening. It has to happen.
Yes. Like, because each perspective is so diverse and beautiful and fun, and it can, we've talked about things like safety and consent and things like that. We've tackled deeper topics. We've examined why it is that we love to read romance, and then we have fun as well. And then I don't know like how much we're like, I can actually say of it, like with the Ice Planet Barbarians, when it's like, how far
that led to some interesting conversations. Yeah,
lots of interesting conversations. And it's just such a blessing, right? You can say that. I feel like that is a space where we have literally said any type of thing in that environment, and it's totally fine. And even though we've grown so much, we still quiet down and make space for everyone to speak, and we listen. We actively listen, right? And so, that's one of my favorites.
And you can see what I find very interesting as well, because I was fortunate to be there in the first one, so I can get to see how it's been evolving. It's the different age groups.
Yeah.
The different levels of experience. Like you said, it's really nice to see mother and daughters coming together. And different levels as well of how some are like avid romance readers, have been reading forever. Yeah. Others are kind of new to it. This is all new territory. Others are perhaps, they're a little bit more shy, but that's normal because the group can get a little rowdy and it can be intimidating. But I find it interesting just observing the women coming in. And then we also have Adam now participating, which is really interesting. He gets to read and talk about it with us and survive. But I think it's so interesting to see how bit by bit, whatever is each one's stories. I guess I'm putting on my sort of my therapeutic background. I can't help myself. I look and I'm always imagining, wondering like, what's the story here? What is this person's story? And how does this book activate something in them? Mm. And I've noticed as well that the books that we chose, because we spin the bottle. Yeah, that's how we pick the books, right?
It's so fun.
It's so fun. Is the books that seem to be, okay, this will be a fluff read. This will be, it's all right. It's not a huge book. These are the books that render the most lively of conversations. Yeah. And it's just interesting when I look at this from the perspective of what does romance do and activate in us? Mm. There's an aliveness to it. I feel. Granted, like I said, it's my first book club, so I'm not speaking from extensive experience here, but I just find that really interesting. There's an aliveness, there's an activation of things that just make me wonder, how is that going to unfurl months from now? How are some of these readers? I want to see their own evolution, even though they may not have shared anything that's private about their own life and journey. But I look at them and I'm like curious to see what's their journey as much as I'm curious about my own journey. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. And oh my gosh, I just had like so many things kind of popping through my head as you were talking. I think the first one, I don't remember which part it was in response to. Oh my gosh, that's like the age I'm getting to. But
hey, welcome.
I'm like, oh no, what did I walk in the room wanting to do? But the first thought I have is that it starts with community, right? You're and talking about these different, this diverse group of readers that we have, some new, some old to romance and things like that. But we've all shown up for some kind of community. Right. And I don't know if you remember, like when we were talking about like, hey, do we want to continue to do this during the summer? Like at that time when I posed that question, I was thinking, kids are going to be out of school. I know people go on vacation. Like maybe people want to pause in order to not feel that pressure of having to be, somewhere. And if also don't remember, if you remember like the vehement, like how dare I suggest.
They were shocked. Like, no.
We are still going. And I was like, okay. Like, I just, wanted to be, conscious of that and ask. Yeah. But I think that that's a testament to the type of, group that's evolved, right? Like we're all there for this community. We're all there because we enjoy romance. And I think they work in tandem in different ways. Like I think of happiness and fulfillment and possibility. Right. And I think, in romance, also the unexpected to a degree, like we know romance is coming, and depending on the trope, we might have an idea, but these characters don't, right? And we love reading time and time again how they're surprised by how they didn't expect change their life in just unimagined ways. And I think that going through that, when we live life in a way where we do experience, we're always going to have our bills. We might always need to work or take care of the kids or these different things that we repeat over and over and over again, right? Have a little bit of that unexpected and an unexpected joy.
Yes. Yes. That's the reflection for me when I kind of went into my cave and I found myself, the only thing I could do was read the romance. It was like medicine and nutrients that I needed. I realized something. I realized several things, but one of them is that the fact that the story ends with a happy ending, however, we know that's going to happen. Yeah. We don't know how it's all going to work in the middle and how the characters are going to make that happen. And so even though it's the trope that we love, we kind of know that kind of world, but we go on the journey with the characters. We do it, we're just as surprised as they are sometimes, but we know it's going to be a happy ending. I found myself being able to be more democratic in my reading because it was the ending was guaranteed. I could relax. It felt safe. So whatever the traumas I was going to face with the character, I could still face it because I knew the end. I was going to have a sort of a resolution. And I think this is the thing I've been thinking a lot about romance. It helps us meet change from a perspective of curiosity. Like I like to say, the curiosity of lovers. So that's why this idea of like, how do we meet change with more of that rather than what the culture has taught us to be so bracing, constantly bracing. And I understand that a little pessimism can help us navigate the world. But I think what the world needs now is a bit more enchantment, remembering that there's other possibilities. We don't know the end. We don't know. But if we can kind of relax a little bit and feel that there's possibility, we might approach whatever's happening in our lives. Our difference in approach can actually help the thing that's in front of us in our lives move in ways that are different, Mm-hmm. And I think, to me, that's why romance is such a medicine, hidden under sexy covers. It's just better dressed, Tragedy can teach us a lot of things, but I think romance dresses better, has a better sense of fashion.
I think romance can also help us see events or things that we've gone through in a different light as well. Mm-hmm. I think literature in general is fantastic of that. Like sometimes we're not ready to meet things head on, or we're not ready to, maybe we don't even recognize certain facets of ourselves. And we get that process of discovery through reading a good book, through reading a romance. Like, have you ever read a romance where you're like, oh, I think I've been that person. Like we know somewhere in the middle that they're making some mistake, right?
Yeah.
In this process to happily for now or happily ever after, things like that. But like having that pause and be like, oh, I think I've been that person, or, oh, I think I dated that person.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. Especially when you're telling the main character, like, how dare you? Like, why would you do this? Why would you forgive these things? And be like, oh, pretty sure I did that.
Yeah.
Or maybe I was that red flag that one time, and this is how I know, like, don't do this.
Don't do this.
Right?
Yeah. And sometimes you're reading and you're saying, oh my God, this is a core issue in my life.
Absolutely. And so I think romance is so beautiful. Like it's a medicine, like you say, but it's also I don't know what the correct word for it is, but it's self-discovery.
Definitely.
And not in the passionate sense. I think like it can unearth so many different things. And the romance is getting to go through that process in a contained setting, like in a private setting to some degree, unless you're in book club and then we all talk about it, right? We will sort each other out.
Well, and maybe this is the magic of it, because I think that you're raising a good point. I think there's something very intimate about reading in general. For the ancients, reading in silence, it was strange. You wouldn't do it. Yeah. You had to read out loud. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's already kind of, it's signaling then that it's an intimate thing, that when you read, we don't know what's going on with the reader. But even the reader themselves sometimes needs a time to digest what they're reading. And I think there's an intimacy with the reading where you get seeing yourself in the characters. Perhaps something is activating in you because of the story, a memory, sometimes a trauma. And we have to sit with that. We sort of digesting it. And more and more I think about when we go through a reading slump. Mm-hmm. It's more like I think you're digesting. You probably read quite a bit and you're needing to just, you need Alka-Seltzer and you just need to digest. But I think when you go to a book club, this is a different, not something many people get to do, but when you get to a club where you can really share, now it's almost like group therapy to a certain degree, where you're sharing your perspective and others' perspectives might change your perspective on the story. And however deep or safe the group feels allows one to go even deeper then.
Yes.
And that's magical.
Exactly. Oh my God. I was going to say, you took it out of my mouth. I was going to say, that's what makes that magic there, right? And then coming back to the community and being in those spaces with those people that you feel like you can work through those things with, or like not being, wow, as I'm like sitting here trying to form a thought, having those half-baked thoughts or not fully formed thoughts, and having people let you work through that.
Yes.
Like in real time, and supporting and asking follow-up questions, and you're coming to this together. It also makes me think back to, when we're talking about like reading what we want to read, and then like having kind of being told what to read. I think that maybe can be a benefit though, of having those selections made for us, especially during like a reading slump, right? Where we're not really quite sure. But like if you've ever had those ones where, and I've experienced this at least, at school. It's all a different kind of therapy, right? Where I have these like assigned readings. I have to do these specific ones. And I'll get through and I'll be like, what in the world did I just happened? And like, I took, for example, this term, I took composition theory, and would you think, and I've cried so much during this process and in this course, because I'm discovering things about myself as a writer that had been so buried that I had no idea. But because I've been given these assigned readings, because I've been like, when we've had these discussions in class, it's bringing out. And I think it's the same with book club can do that. Sure, Bob. Oh my gosh, sure, Bob can do that.
It will be my first Sure Bob, so I'm coming in. And so
yes.
Just for the listener here, what's a short explanation of the Sure Bob? Because it sounds funny.
Yes, Sure Bob is based off of the Oregon Battle of the Books, but it's made for the Sherwood bookstore, because why should kids have the only fun reading programs? Adults get it too. So it's a trivia book club, 6 reads, different genres, 3 months to prepare, and it's team trivia. I think that's maybe the shortest, hopefully.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I mean, that's good for me. I did because I signed up for it. Now I'm like, what have I done?
Oh my gosh. But it's so interesting because like last year, it was the inaugural Sure Bob, and our reads were Tender as the Flesh, Bob the Drag Queens. It was Harriet Tubman live in concert. Brooke Shields is Not Allowed to Get Old. Comfort of Crows. Psalm for the Wild Built. Lost and Lassoed, I think, was the last one. And the way that, so I knew that we needed to read these ones. Our group had divided up who was reading what. Obviously, I wanted to read all of them anyway. But the way that I had structured my reading, or at least the order that I read them in, had me with like Comfort of Crows, Brooke Shields, and Psalm for the Wild Built in a row. And all 3 of these books, different genres. Psalm for the Wild Built is sci-fi fantasy. Brooke Shields is Not Allowed to Get Older is a biography. And Comfort of Crows is nonfiction, right? All of them dealt with transition and change and different seasons of life and where we're headed, identity and belonging, all of these things. And all of these things were, once again, like as I'm coming out of finishing up my bachelor's, going to pivot into this new section, having my 2 boys become adults, all of these things, like I don't know what I did to myself in structuring all of those together. But I will say that all of these books that I never would have chosen on my own, like I had to be told to read these. Well, and select to, right? I had that agency to say yes or no, I'm going to sign up or not sign up. And then this order in which I put them created this like transformational period of time where I really got to wrestle with some of these things that I was experiencing and make sense of it in such a beautiful way, and then go compete. And see if my was enough to win me a trophy.
I think that's a wonderful thing you're kind of reframing here for me, because I think a lot of us, and I've had several people tell me this, the fact that we had assigned reading in school is one of the things that sort of takes the joy out of reading for a lot of people. That's it ruined reading for them. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, it didn't do it for me, but I remember after reading so much what I was told to read, I was like, I'm a vibe reader. I want to read what I'm in the mood for. But I agree with you, because sometimes you do have the agency to say yay or nay. The last book club, our gathering, the book Vicious, I couldn't do it. I couldn't finish it. DNFing is so liberating. But I think it does allow you to open yourself up to different possibilities. And your example there is great, because 3 genres, 3 different books that you wouldn't think are talking about the same theme, you could see the thread. Yeah. And you could wrestle with it yourself, things about what was in the book and what was in your life.
Yeah. And honestly, I probably could have made, maybe not Tender as the Flesh, but like a couple of the other ones like Lost and Lassoed, I probably could have identified the same things. Mm-hmm. I think my point in talking about that is sometimes when we know the genres we like and we stick with those genres, and we can get a ton out of those genres. But I think the benefit of opening ourselves up or feeling like it's been assigned or we need to, and especially in settings like book clubs where, once again, like we're around these people that we enjoy and we know whether we hate or love a book, like it's going to be okay to share what we actually think about it. It gives us this opportunity for change in a different way. Because I think when we stay in the same genre, we kind of can expect a little bit of the change that we're going to go to, right? Like we can curate it a little bit more. Yeah. And sometimes having a little bit of that loss of control, but still in like that, once again, kind of safe, contained setting allows us to take more risks, wrestle with things that maybe we wouldn't have if we stayed in the same lane that we were in. So I think which I don't know, maybe it's weird to think of assigned reading as a way of like, here, like have this therapy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Right? And I think I was interesting as you were saying, I'm remembering this conversation. I have a really good friend who's, we've been friends for, I don't know, a couple of decades at this point. He's a therapist. And I remember him saying this a long time ago. Confidence, one of the elements of confidence is that when you have a container for it, in which, like you see a child, they can run ahead of you. They can do that because you're behind them sort of as a container. If they fall, you're there, you're going to catch them. And I think we need more examples of this. We need more experiences of this because confidence is not just doing it. Yeah. It's doing it within the container in which you can feel safe. That if you don't finish, you can't do it, others will be there. They will catch you. They will help you or something. And even in this, it might seem like nothing, this experience of a book club where we're being exposed to other books, other subgenres or other genres that we're like, oh, I think I'm a little resistant. But the element that the group is there with you allows you to go. And if like me, if you want to drop the book, you drop it. It's okay,
Which it was so interesting because I feel like with Vicious, there was more, like many people struggled with that one, with the content and the way that this character was. But it was still, I feel like, one of our longer conversations.
Yes.
And it led to one of the deeper ones, which was interesting.
It was.
Right? This book, like, you wouldn't have thought that would have done that.
Yeah. Hey, if it wasn't for the book club, I wouldn't have read, which is the next one, Getting My Swamp. So there you are.
Gosh. I need this. Yes, I'm reading that one shortly since we're talking about it next week.
Yeah. Well, at least it's a quick read, so you'll be okay.
This is true. I am very curious. I had a little bit of Adam's thoughts on it. So yeah, I'm curious to experience it and see what
my money's on. It's gonna be a pretty lively meeting the day of that book.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So you as a lover of books and other genres that you're reading as well, I'm kind of curious, what does romance give you? Romances specifically give you that the other genres don't?
Oh, that's such a great question. And I don't, I'll be honest, even though I've been thinking about it, I don't know that I have a set answer. So I'm going to try and talk it out a little bit and see. I think even just taking away the label, or the traditional way we think of romance, right? Like, I'm going to go down this aisle. I know that I'm going to find bodice rippers and now contemporary kind of animated, looking covers and things like that. I've loved romance since I was young, right? In these stories that I've read growing up. And there's a feeling of romance to adventure. There's a feeling of romance with connecting with a good book. And then obviously the romance between people that find each other together as they go. The first romance that would be qualified in that romance aisle, or an adult romance that I ever read, was Nora Roberts' Jewels of the Sun. And I still remember being in that Barnes & Noble aisle at 18, feeling because I had a very conservative background or, experience growing up. I'm like, do I need a paper bag for this? It doesn't look like feeling oh my gosh, what am I doing? I can feel something is, different. I think for me, romance is hope. That there's something more.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know necessarily what that more is. It is a feeling of adventure and belonging because you're discovering these things along the way.
Mm-hmm.
I always love those, like, I mean, like you were saying earlier, I do really love the badass women. Like, I've been on a lady night kick.
Yes, lady night. That's it. Because you've been a lady night for the last couple of years.
No, I think I've needed to embody that. And maybe it's been motivating for sure to read some of them. But even just like the quirky, like things do not turn out and it's like a kind of a comedy. I'm like, I can relate to that too. Like, oh man, but just knowing that even if you don't know like fully how it's going to end, you know that there's good things to be found. Like you're going to come upon good things. And so this is such a broken way of answering this. But I feel hopeful. And I feel like it helps me become a better, wow, this is like the worst answer ever. I don't know. I just feel like it helps me become a better person and discover things about myself.
That's a wonderful answer because I really resonate with the hopeful. I think I myself had not even thought of that word, but as you were answering and thinking about my own experience, it was hope. That it felt like a medicine, the sense that it's going to be okay. Things work out. They're going to work out. Why can they not work out when we're constantly sold that it's all going to go downhill? Why can they not go uphill?
And it can work out in different ways as well. Like I am divorced. I am still not remarried. I had opportunities to, and I still haven't been able to quite bring myself to there. But that doesn't mean that I still don't love and romance and not thought that I'm going to be okay either way. And I think, seeing some of these women in romance novels develop more confidence, be able to articulate what they want and step away from what they don't, to be create a sense of honesty with themselves that maybe they haven't had before. This process of self-discovery, I think, is such a vital thing. And sometimes that's the romance more than it is in connecting with that person that they end up with.
Yeah.
The monster.
I think of course, the monster. Gotta love the monsters. But I think it's a romance with oneself.
Yeah.
Because I guess in some ways, we can look at all the characters in the book and there are different parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so maybe the happy ending that we see in the story, it is a union within ourselves of the different parts of ourselves that are split for whatever reason. And
I think so, to some degree. But then it also makes you think of the characters that you don't like or resonate with. Like, so for me, I so dislike when the feminine characters are just like, they can't seem to do anything for themselves, right? They need to be rescued. They're just, I don't know. They can't seem to pull it together. And for me, that bothers me so much. Okay, well, then why does that bother me? Because those are things that sometimes bother me about myself when I feel paralyzed or lost or can't make those decisions or lack this feeling of resourceful in that moment. And so I think what we critique and what we embrace are just as important to keep an eye on. And
I think especially the ones that really kind of it makes us cringe or we hate or you're really activated. I feel those are the ones that will probably give us even juicier answers if we can sit with the discomfort. Yeah.
For you, what's that character? What is the character that bothers you most?
funny enough, I've read a few more recently that have that kind of character where they're constantly like, no, I don't deserve love. I've
yes.
made this mistake in the past.
Yeah.
And so here's the other character pledging their love to them. And they're like, no, I can't. I'm shutting down to love. And I can see it's an armoring. It's a constant like, no, I don't want to give what before from the stories, but also perhaps in my own life, it was given freely and criticized. So now I'm going to, close the business. And so they're sort of constantly negotiating with themselves in the story. Will I? I don't know. I don't. It drives me insane, but because I'm impatient with myself. When I too go into that sort of like, will I? No, I'm not going to do it. Oh, I can't make that decision. And so it's a sort of a tough therapy to read those books, but it is a working through myself, to understand. And I think it's just interesting. It takes a bit of time, maybe a little bit of digestion. And this is where being able to talk to somebody else, a friend or a book club friend or whatever it might be, it is just as potently therapeutic than going to the therapist, because sometimes talking about it with another fellow reader who loves this type of stuff, they can be there with you as well.
Well, and sometimes they are. Sometimes they feel the same things and haven't been able to articulate it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like that example like I was using earlier where I was like, how did I not know that there are other people that just love to read as much as I do and like put themselves in spaces? Why didn't I do this? Like, I think it's the kind of the same thing where it's like, well, how did I not know that there was others that might be feeling like this? And if I had shared this, like, I can have this community sooner.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
But I'm also curious, like going back, okay, then what is that character that you resonate with the most or that you are most wanting to embody?
That's a good question. I find myself, I'm looking at it because the book I just finished this morning, I find myself often liking the male characters, the other. And perhaps because in my mind, and it was a little bit of what I wrote in my thesis, which was called The Healing Power of Fluff. And in that, I was working with romantic comedies. And the idea was that the story is like a dream and it's guiding you through it. But also sometimes the other, and in this case it was a male character, is kind of like the torchbearer for the journey of the heroine to reclaim aspects of her own feminine self, aspects of herself, really. And so I think I really like and resonate with characters that have a grounding devotion, that they show up. They're not exaggerated. They're just a sense of like measured loyalty almost, a devotion. They show up, they're there, they listen, they acknowledge, they know to say when I'm sorry, when they're wrong. But I really appreciate those characters that have that element. More recently, I rewatched Pride and Prejudice, which was one of my favorites.
Which version I have to ask?
I love both. I like the Colin Firth, but I really like the movie with Keira Knightley because I love Mr. Darcy, still one of my favorite characters. But I think it's because in the movie, we have a sense of his interior self, even though he's not telling us what he's feeling. It's much more internal performance. Colin Firth, I think, shows us the social constraints of the time.
And the lake scene, yes.
of course, the lake scene, right? Oh, that goes without saying. But hey, in the movie, there's a hand flex, and that is
true.
That is a whole cosmos in itself. But I appreciate, I was telling my husband, because I made him watch it with me, is what I appreciate about Darcy is the sense of he learns. Yeah. He learns, he's able to acknowledge, he's able to say, I'm sorry. And when he does the right thing, he does it in a way that isn't like, hey, look at me, I did it. you got to now applaud me. He actually wants to keep it
quiet.
Down low and quiet. And I think it speaks to me a Saturnian kind of love. It is serious. It is not all song and dance, but it's present. And I appreciate that. So those tend to be my favorite characters. Because when I wrote my thesis in doing that process, I kind of realized that there are a lot of qualities about Darcy that I have, right or wrong, exaggerated or not. But it was always interesting to see how the characters that you love, that really resonate with you, are speaking to qualities of yourself that you have, perhaps even if in a seed form, but that they can actually blossom. So if we follow those characters, that's why the whole idea of the book boyfriend fascinates me.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's something about that crush over a fictional character, which isn't too far from a crush on an actor or a singer.
Right.
Is that those characters can actually serve as motivation for us to improve, to grow. They don't have to be static. What is it about those characters that motivate? So I think for me, it's that, can I show up to the things I'm saying I want to show up? Can I be disciplined? Can I, that kind of thing.
I like that.
So I hope that makes sense.
Does make sense.
So, well, we're coming up on time here. So before I go into our rapid fire questions that I told you about, is there anything? Okay, here's a question that actually I wonder about this. If you were to approach someone, speak to romance, someone who doesn't read romance, what would you say about romance?
Oh,
maybe to help them, like, hey, maybe you can read these books.
Oh boy, I feel this is such a loaded question. I think romance. Some of the first things, I'm so used to like statistics a little bit, right? Like romance is one of the top selling genres that doesn't get the credit that it deserves. And I think maybe what I would say would be some of the things we've talked about, like how it's vital in that process of self-discovery, and a beautiful sense of hope and belonging. And I think that romance is present, like whether you want to look at the strict category of romance or look at the way that romance transcends genre into literary fiction and science fiction, fantasy and nonfiction. It's present everywhere, right? It's growth and it's love. And so depending on maybe what they'd like to read, maybe I would suggest a title that in the genre of their preference that involves romance. And then challenge them to up that ante and be like, okay, well, you have this, here's something within the traditional category of romance that takes that and elevates it to the next level. Right. I don't know that I would do it justice. I hope I would do it better justice than
No, I think, of course you have to read the room. So it would depend on how the person is showing up, how open or closed they are. But I think
there's romance for everyone. If there were more closed to it, then something like Pride and Prejudice, would be a soft. I'm really into this book from Emma Brody, Into the Blue. I absolutely loved that one. Came out within the last month. That's a beautiful love story. That's literary fiction that I would suggest to people. Within romance, for sense of possibility, and once again, if they're not wanting a lot of spice, I think is the road to elsewhere, the train to elsewhere.
I know the cover. It's a beautiful cover. Yes,
it's a beautiful cover, like something like that. And then, like if somebody wanted funny, quirky, The Unhoneymooners from Christina Lauren is one I love to recommend. Or, gosh. Like YA, I'm still a lover of Holly Black's The Cruel Prince series. I absolutely love the character of Jude Duarte. And I don't know, like it would depend on who I'm talking to, but I think I would hope that I would be able to ask some questions, get to know them a little bit, and what might fit with either
their life, their style.
Yeah, their life. Yeah. Because I think, like if you're lucky, you encounter the right book at the right time. And so like recommendations are weighty. I really do try to think about how that will pair. So it does feel like individual to some degree.
Yeah, you said two things that made me pop up two things in my mind. Books do show up in our lives at the right time. It's almost like a relationship in and of itself, right? You read the book at the right time. Like this book I just finished, I bought it last year when I went to Edinburgh to the romance bookstore that I told you about. And only now did I read it a year later. And I read it at the right time. So it's a kind of like a relationship. Yeah. The other thing you said there is, now it escaped me. Oh, perimenopause. I'm
glad I'm not the one that had that moment.
No, the brain fog is real. The struggle is real. It's escaped from me. Recommendations. Yeah. The thing I have with recommendations is I feel it's an opportunity of being seen and being recognized. Yeah. And of course, it's difficult because oftentimes you don't know the person, but there's an ability of being seen. And I find that when people just throw away recommendations as like, oh, you got to read this because this is all over. You're not seeing me, and I think it's difficult but it's so wonderful when the person is able to, it's like a sixth sense, picks it up and sees something in you, and they recommend the right thing. Yeah, it's like that's what I was saying. It's kind of magic because it's like you felt seen. Yeah, and so that's a gift. That's a gift.
I'd also like to say sometimes rereads can hit you at the right moment as well. Like I think Jane Austen's Persuasion was that for me. Yeah.
Another wonderful one.
So good. Yeah. I feel like good. People either love or hate that one, but it's actually one of probably like my favorite of hers.
Yeah. I'm still Pride and Prejudice. That's probably my second.
I could not argue that. That's a fantastic book.
Okay. So you ready for some rapid fire?
I hope so.
So the idea here is just answer with your gut. Okay. Don't overthink it. Okay. So I think you touched on this one already, but the first romance novel you remember reading?
Yes. Strict romance novel I remember reading, or traditional, like in that aisle, was Jewels of the Sun, Nora Roberts.
Yeah. A romance novel that belongs on a syllabus and the course that you would teach it.
Oh my gosh.
Tougher one, huh?
Yeah, that's so hard. I will say the two that immediately came to mind were Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. I was very lucky to take a course dedicated to Jane Austen's novels, which was amazing. Jane Eyre, I'm like, well, maybe I need to wonder what's wrong with me. But I love me some Gothic romances that are complex.
Yeah, it is a complex one, for sure.
It is a complex one. And I've been dying to take a class or maybe teach something that would be all Brontes, just because Gothic complexity.
The Gothic, and I think it fits the times now, actually. Yeah. What is a trope in romance that you would defend in front of a thesis committee?
Enemies to lovers, hands down.
Yeah. I don't know what would be your thesis statement about enemies to lovers?
Oh my gosh, you know how long it takes me to create thesis statements? I don't even know that I can answer that one. I mean, I would be more like to, I don't know, I can't say thesis, but I will say that the theme of the things I'm mentioning, minus the Nora Roberts, because I don't think it was enemies to lovers in there, but like I really, like there's something about clashing that I find fascinating and the way that we address that and face that.
Mm-hmm. I think of the tropes as the most alchemical one because it's so you start with an opposition of sorts.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
You bring it to a union. I'm just like, show me how that's going to work out.
Right?
Yeah.
It's I don't remember which book I was talking about to someone where I was like, I think there's something wrong with me. Like, I think, like, am I allowed to curse in this? I don't know.
Go ahead. Yeah, you can.
Okay. I had gone hiking with a couple of my friends, and I was talking to them about one of the books, and I can't remember which one it was. And I was like, I feel like there's something very wrong with me. Like, they've gotten to the spot where they're hate fucking, and I'm not against it. And then I started to try and like understand what is broken in me. But there's something about the clash. I don't know. So my thesis would probably be something about why there is this like need to have there be more obstacles. Like, is this a thing? Like, is it the people pleasing? Like, what kind of personality? Like, and I would use it as a way to try and understand myself. Like, that would be the entire paper, is I'm basically doing therapy for myself.
Absolutely. And you use the image of what is broken with me, about me. And when you said it, it made me think about, what if the thing that is so-called broken in us is where actually what is really wanting to come out from us is the crack in which it can come out.
Yeah. Strength, maybe. That's what comes to mind, is wanting to be stronger. And I guess that ties with the Lady Knights. I don't know how that translates necessarily to like not liking somebody, but then having that turn into like, I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little bit more, but
yeah,
is what comes to mind.
I think it's an idea, because it's interesting how we so quickly are able to judge ourselves. Something is broken in us.
Yeah.
And what if that thing that is broken is actually the crack in which whatever has been repressed, pressed down, hidden, put aside, now gets to start coming out.
Or a way we deflect too, because like saying it's definitely something where it doesn't feel like it should be something that I should like, right? Or find interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe it's also a mode of deflection where I need to be stronger about owning those things that I find interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Okay. You kind of touched on this one, but let's say if somebody comes to you and they say, I don't read romance, period. Which is one romance you might be like, no, give this one a go.
Oh man. That it's once again, it's needing to be able to assess who this person is. So it would have underlying characters. I always think funny first. So the first one that comes to mind is, because I've mentioned it earlier in this one, is The Honeymooners from Christina Lauren. Just because it's just so fun. I don't know, but
yeah,
there's probably a better one.
No, but this is the one that came out now.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think there's something, it breaks a barrier. If it's funny, maybe it's a way to break the barrier.
Yeah.
Okay. You're doing good. Last one.
Okay.
So I named the podcast Romancing the Threshold.
Yes.
So when you hear that, what does that mean to you?
Ooh. Well, I think thresholds are meant to be crossed, right? It's a doorway between two different places, and making that decision whether you want to cross over that or not. So romancing the threshold, I think, involves some of the self-discovery that we've been talking about, and assessing what aligns most with us. And I would like to think, at least for myself, that means crossing that threshold and embracing what comes next, even if it's unknown.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. It's just, I love hearing how people reflect on the name. I know what it means to me, but the more I hear people's reflection, it's like, oh, okay. I different parts of it open up for me as well. So that's great.
And it can all be true at the same time.
At the same time. So Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. And I'll be seeing you next week at the Romance Book Club.
Yes.
A swamp needs to be discussed.
Yes, get a nice swamp. It's direct it.
It's the next one. It's
Yes.
interesting read. I don't want to give my opinion right now because we haven't read it.
Yeah.
But this was really nice. And your story, as you shared, is very inspiring. It's a romance in itself. You're the main character. You're the lady knight main character. So you're doing, and you got the name Rebecca. Like, sounds good. Sounds like a good name. So I'll be seeing you next week.
That sounds great.
I want to leave you with a question. Not to answer right now, just to carry with you the way you'd carry a book you're not finished with. When did you write yourself off? Most of us have a moment like that somewhere behind us. It's rarely loud. It's rarely a decision that we'd even recognize as one at the time. We're sitting somewhere ordinary, and a thought arrives quietly and reasonable. That's not for me. Not anymore. Maybe it never was. And we believe it. We close the door so gently, we forget our own hand was on it. But here's the thing about a door you close yourself. You're also the one who can stand in front of it again. So that's what I would ask you to sit with. Where did you quietly decide something was finished? A path, a version of yourself, a want you talked yourself out of. And what would it take to ask the braver question? Not, is it too late? But, did I only tell myself it was? You don't have to do anything with that today. Just let it keep you company for a while. The good questions tend to wait for us. If something in this conversation found you, tell me. Leave a comment or a review wherever you listen to this podcast. Or send this episode to the one person you were thinking of while you listened. They will find it because you sent it, not because of an algorithm. You can find my writing at vanessacuto.substack.com and everything else at vanessacuto.com. Until next time.